Let's party.
Hello! Welcome everybody to Party Loaded. It is episode 205, which is the final episode of the year, 2019. My name's Luke Ritalik. Joining me tonight we have below me, both of the gents. We have Matt the Game Dad Diet and we have Christian Paulson Brown as well. We are minus one Adrian Chia because according to his last update, he's currently coughing up blood.
Yes.
Yikes. So
well, soon, I hope.
Like I said to him, shiny Pokemon have asbestos. They're riddled with it.
Yeah, absolutely.
He's been down in the shiny mines too long. He's got the shiny lung.
Yeah.
Shiny lung.
Shiny lung.
Perfect.
Oh god. Yeah, no, I'm actually curious as to whether it's like the sleep deprivation and like constant focus and no break in between that's actually led to his body just degrading to the point where it's just mush.
Yeah.
No, it's the fucking mold from the Fallout 76 helmet.
Oh god, yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It's finally got him.
Yeah. So he went back to do some research for his favorite games of the year and got infected. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Oh god, no, I hope not. Well, we may hear from him a little bit later, but we'll see how he's doing. I hope he's actually okay. Don't want to miss the final show of the year, but anyway, whatever happens. We've got a bunch to get through tonight, guys. So we have, of course, part 2 of our 2019 party favorites. So we're going to be getting into the last 5 categories of bits and pieces from throughout the year. So chatting about our favorite game mechanics. We're going to be chatting about our favourite sort of surprise of the year, our biggest disappointment. We're going to be chatting about our favourite moment or sequence, and of course we're going to get through to our favourite games of 2019. So I think I said this to you both, like when we were doing the picks for last episode's stuff. I found the 5 categories tonight, personally, a hell of a lot easier than the 5 we covered last week.
I found them all pretty easy, to be honest. Like compared to doing our Game Awards picks, I found doing my favourites very, very easy.
Yeah.
Game Awards picks was hard. Actually, when I put it from my head with the Game Awards picks, I found it easier. Game of the Year, I struggled with this year. I really struggled with Game of the Year.
Yes.
Yeah.
I have a number of honourable mentions, but anyway, we'll get to that.
We were told not to do that.
No. Make the rules as we go. That's how we roll. Anyway, before we talk about those games, let's talk about some this week games. So, Christian, do you want to kick off tonight? Have you been playing anything interesting this week? Or?
Not really, actually. So I completed Red Dead 2, and I shared some of my thoughts on that via Twitter. But yeah, basically, I thought it was a really good game overall, and I really liked the last sort of third of the game. I think is the best part, and yeah, it was a really nice world to play around in. I don't really have any desire to go back and do any other like follow-up activities or go for the platinum or anything. I can see that I'm immediately done with it, and I'm not interested in Red Dead Online. So yeah, I mean, it was a fun experience. I'm glad that I just crossed it off my list of like games that I'd half completed, because it always bugs me when I like leave games uncompleted. So I've crossed that one off. And I think next up might be Yakuza 0 in that regard. Yeah, where I put maybe 15 hours into Yakuza 0 and then dropped it. And that's always bugged me. It's always like a monkey on my shoulder telling me to go back and finish it. So I might pick that up. But other than Red Dead 2, I haven't actually been playing anything. I've just been watching TV and stuff. So not a lot to talk about.
How about that Watchmen? You seen that Watchmen yet?
No, I haven't actually. I really want to. I don't know why I haven't. That's a good point.
Yeah,
but
you got to do that. Anyway, enough about that sort of thing. I've been on Matt's back about watching that as well. But
I want to.
Yeah.
I want to, but it's not available at anything in Australia right now, so I know how you're getting it.
Well, you know.
Actually,
Anywho. Matt, what have you been playing this week?
Oh, guess what I've been playing? If we're going to know...
I'm probably going to guess because it's something that I've also been playing. So, is it the thing?
It's the thing. Yes.
Thing.
Destiny. I haven't talked about Destiny in a while.
We'll talk about it when there's reason to talk about it, and I think
Yeah.
that the start of the new season with new content's a good enough reason. So yeah.
Yeah, so the first week of Season of Dawn has been out. And I was gonna say, like, I'm really fucking excited about the where the narrative's going. And I'm glad that Adrian's not here, because usually when Adrian's here, he and Christian make me feel really bad for like nerding out over lore stuff. I'm looking at you, Christian. I'm looking at you.
Christian is 100% capable of doing this without Adrian's help. Don't worry.
Yeah, exactly. But now, like, it's 1-to-1, and you're here, so technically we outnumber him.
Oh, Adrian's in the chat actually. So.
Oh shit. But yeah, like, narratively, this is a character that there's a character in Season of Dawn that we've heard about for ages, like since Destiny 1, and we've now just come in contact with him. And the way that the narrative was basically that we were always going to meet him to give him a gun so he could travel back in time and then give us that gun when we started.
You mentioned that last week. That sounded really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so the story is picking up, and it's actually there's some Destiny lore nerds that are way more lore nerdy than I am, that have actually like been working on a timeline and adjusted that timeline now based on all the information we've gotten just from this first week of this season, because it's done that much of a lore dump.
They've time gated some of the story part of this as well, which I think was a really good move. It's almost like watching an episode of a series sort of each week. Yeah.
So basically, like the first week, like this whole season's all about saving this historical character in the Destiny universe. In the first week, you get to meet him, but you don't get to save him yet. So you have to actually wait for the ability to save him. But you're building up to that. Like you're building up everything to actually go out and do that. And the content's great. Like it's basically the way that Sundial works is essentially like Menagerie, which is from one of the past DLCs.
Oh yeah. Sundial works like Menagerie.
You don't care.
No, it's not that I don't care. It's that I don't know what that means. But that's fine.
Yeah, so Sundial is a super fun little activity. It gets repetitive pretty fast, but they do make it different every single week, so a different boss rolls through to play against. The new guns are fucking great. They all look like they take shaders really well compared to most Destiny guns. Like the guns from last season, I hated using because they were covered in like moss and leaves, and if you recolored them, they just look really ugly.
Yep, was not a fan.
Yeah, they're really smooth and sleek, and so every single shader looks magical on them.
I can get behind some good aesthetic.
Yeah,
Let's party.
Pretty cool.
I think it's a real test like that they're still coming up with concepts and so
Yeah, but like this season compared to last, like I didn't put that much time in last season, and in the past week in this season, I've basically like taken like half of the time that I did in last season already and done it in just the past week. So yeah, like it's fun to play Destiny again. Not that it wasn't fun last season, but I just think the content's much more interesting to me this season. So yeah.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, I've put in a bunch of time into the Sundial stuff as well, and the season of the Dawning, which is the Christmas event that they run each year, has just kicked off as of last night, our time. So they've got this weird ass thing going on in Destiny 2 at the moment where you've got these ongoing quests where you scour the solar system in hunt for resources to basically bake cookies for the main characters in the game and deliver them to each of the different characters and fulfill quests. It's weird. You actually carry around a portable oven and you put these weird ingredient combinations in it to cook all this stuff up, and there's like a whole quest chain associated with it. It sounds dumb as fuck, but it's actually really fun. So
it's cute. It's actually cute. Well, it's cute until like you're going out and you're collecting Cabal oil or hive, like what is I forget the hive material. It's basically like the flour. Like you're grinding up hive into like hive flour.
Something from their chitin, I think. But
really icky.
Of course, with the Vex, it's the Vex milk. Of course, it's the Vex milk. Yeah.
Drifter is 100% for this.
Yeah, absolutely.
Only you get that.
How do robots have milk?
Well, the Vex have got that weak spot in the middle of their chest, which is like a fluid that is part of their circuitry. So,
Luke is only half the lore nerd.
Yeah, I don't fucking know. I just, yeah.
So Vex milk is Vex.
Yeah,
right?
you turn
Those
Vex on their
machine
side, and then there's a separate machine you get to actually milk them. And
No, I'm actually interested in what Matt has to say.
okay.
No, so Vex are just machines. So the actual bodies are just machines. But the Vex milk is basically the living creature, and it's basically like this liquid creature that kind of lives inside of them. And so
It's
whenever
actually
you
like
shoot,
organic.
yeah, it's an organic matter. So whenever you shoot their weak spot, it's why their head isn't their weak spot. The weak spot is actually the part that the Vex milk's contained in. So you shoot that, it shatters the container, and they die.
So they're all essentially like mechs being piloted by little nano creatures.
Yep. Yeah, 100%.
I legit did not know that. That's really interesting.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's sort of like I forget what they're called in Halo, the big dudes with the gigantic shields. They were basically made up of like gigantic collections of worms.
Not the Covenant.
No. They were members of the Covenant. Hunters, hunters in Halo. Were basically gigantic collections of worms in gigantic armor. Bungie just likes their weird creatures.
Yeah.
That's cool.
It's a hell of a lot more interesting than just your standard sort of muscly space alien. I'll give it to them that way.
He's a humanoid
or
thing
just,
that we
or
gave
just
a
robot.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's good.
So it's time traveling milk.
Time traveling milk. Yeah, cool. Yeah, sweet. Speaking of traveling Destiny items, off the back of last week's discussion around our achievements of the year and that sort of thing, I just wanted to do a quick follow-up because mine arrived. So I actually got my Moment of Triumph seal in the post, which it comes with this cool little card, basically sort of saying, congratulations, you're the ultimate badass, state of the badass art. You do not want to fuck with me. And there's the medal. So this thing's pretty cool. It actually, it's got a fair heft to it, actually, considering,
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't look super big on camera, but it's probably, I think it's probably about 4 centimeters across. So, and it has a couple of little clips on the back, so you can actually wear this thing if you wanted to put it on like a bag or a shirt or something like that.
It would fall off. It is so fucking heavy.
Yeah, I think it'd probably tear holes through any clothing, and you put it on after a little while. But
I don't know what it's made from, but it feels brassy, like solid brass or something. It's really nice.
It's the other part of the Vex. It's made from the rest of the Vex. Yeah. So pretty stoked with that, and I've got another one coming out from last season as well. So my collection of achievements has begun. Pretty happy with that.
Yep.
So
yeah, I might actually get this season's because I'm enjoying it that much. So
yeah.
Plus, what's the title? Like Savior or something?
Yeah. It's pretty cool. Pretty cool.
I want that title.
But I have eased back a little bit on Destiny this last week and finished off the game that I said I was going to finish off last week, which is Life is Strange Season 2. So, so back when the episode started launching earlier this year, I got through and played to the end of episode 2 out of 5. And then I hadn't touched it for the rest of the year. And the final episode 5, just came out a couple of weeks ago. So I thought, now's the time, I'll jump back in. The momentum was really just breaking for me because it was way too long between episodes. And I listened to an interview this week some of the developers did, talking about would they go back and change anything with regards to the way season 2 played out, and they definitely sort of agreed that they would have pushed later to drop episode 1 and just made everything a lot closer together. So they still stand by the episodic model, but I think there's a big difference between an episodic model in a tight time frame versus what actually ended up happening. So I don't mind episodic either, but yeah, in this case, I think we saw the bad end of that. But so Life is Strange Season 2, really, really interesting. Just to briefly recap on the story, there's it's basically about...
avoid as many spoilers as you can.
I'll totally avoid spoilers. Yeah, totally avoid spoilers. So the core of the tale is about two brothers who are Hispanic Americans, basically. And an event sort of happens very, very early on, like in the first episode, which basically sets them on their path on a journey. A dangerous journey that sort of, is one born out of tragedy and one that's like a coming of age kind of tale. But the thing that is really impactful about this story in general, and it continues throughout every one of the 5 episodes, is that the devs really do not fuck around when it comes to encountering real world current issues, particularly in today's America when it comes to the issues that they've been facing over the last couple of years with racism and immigration and all those sorts of themes, and how different families are dealing with kind of being treated as outcasts, even though they're just trying to sort of survive and get along with everybody. And when it comes to these two kids that basically dealing with an incident born out of that kind of hatred, and then on the road on their own, basically with not a lot of assistance, and they're kind of coming to terms with the harsher realities of the world without some parents sort of coddling them in that regard. Shit gets pretty real. So yeah, there's a lot of sort of continuing tragedy of sort of small and large degrees. Without sort of spoiling anything, there's some definite, I guess, growing up moments, some pretty serious ones that I'm actually quite surprised the devs sort of went down that road as well. Things that you wouldn't typically see in a video game. And unlike the first Life is Strange, the ending of the second one, I had to actually go and do a little bit of research after I finished the game, because I finished the game and then I went back and I chose a couple of final things differently so that I could get a different outcome. Because the first Life is Strange had two main endings. There was basically an ending that was a lot more of a kind of bad ending, and there was an ending that was a lot more of a good ending. And the creators have always said that there's no one of those two that's strictly canonical. Like, both of them are equally potentially what they would see as canon. But that being said, there was a hell of a lot more time and effort put into one of them over the other. Like, there was a lot of additional story and cutscenes and that kind of thing. So I think a lot of people who've played the game, mostly by public consensus, kind of consider that ending to be the more canonical one, just because of how robust it is.
Okay.
This game, I don't think that's the case. Like, there's also a lot more than two endings. From what I understand, there's about half a dozen or so. So, yeah, there's a lot of different ways things could play out. But, yeah, I think that they actually did a pretty sensible thing in not linking too heavily to Life is Strange 1. It's very much its own story. There are some small tenuous links and more like in an Easter egg sort of format, but it's not kind of relying on building off the scaffolding of the first tale to sort of be successful. I think it's very much its own thing, which is good. So for anyone who asks, should I play Life is Strange 1 before playing 2? My advice would be it doesn't matter at all. I think the only thing I would recommend people play perhaps before picking this one up is the I'm going to get the name wrong. It's the free solo episode that was released mid last year, The Amazing Adventures of Captain Sparkle Pants or something. I forget.
Right.
I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
Is that good to play before season 2?
You can get away with not playing it, but I would recommend it because there are some story tie-ins. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I think of it as almost like a soft prequel to part of the story, not the whole thing. So you can get away without it, but it's a nice experience to have gone through it, I believe. So
okay.
Yeah. But yeah, overall really good. I think I don't know if I prefer it to the first season. Like, I think probably one of the biggest differences between season 1 and 2 is that season 1 is very much based around like one location, being this high school, and as a result of that, the game spends a lot more time on character development and sort of developing that setting. So you kind of get used to it and you learn more about it and you learn more of its history and you learn a lot more of the character's history and that sort of stuff. But because Life is Strange 2, for most of the game, it's very much a road trip. So the characters tend to move on from episode to episode, and that means that there's a constantly changing cast, constantly changing setting. And while that might appeal to some people, I actually find it a bit jarring, because just when I'm getting used to some characters and coming to like them and wanting to know more about them, then all of a sudden we're moving on to the next thing. So yeah. So I think it's very much a taste thing. And if I had to choose, I think probably just because of that, I might prefer the first season. But I also accept that there would be a lot of people out there that would disagree with me as well. So yeah.
Yeah.
But overall, definitely give it a couple of thumbs up, Christian. I think you'll enjoy it. It's probably
looking forward to it.
Probably about 10 hours worth, I'd say. I allow usually about 2 hours per episode. You could definitely finish it quicker if you wanted to, but yeah, it's a solid chunk of game for the price for 10 hours, I think. So yeah,
it's another one of those ones I should finish over the break.
Yeah, well, you can knock it out pretty quickly, and it's a game that I think it's good to have played to understand. essentially this is the kind of model that only a small number of companies have really done exceptionally well. So, I mean, Telltale's had its hits and misses, and God knows what's going to happen now that this strange new beast that once was Telltale is now back in the mix again. But Don't Nod, I think, have probably, I think, been a bit more successful in terms of quality. Yeah. So, yeah, is good. But yeah, that's all games played this week. Why don't we jump into a bit of the industry news? So, yeah, Christian, I know you wanted to chat about a new product that has just been revealed in the last day or so. So
I wanted to talk about something, not so much for what it is, but what I think the implications are. And this is the DualShock 4 back button attachment. So an official first-party attachment for the PlayStation 4 DualShock that is kind of like a little cradle that cups underneath it, plugs in through the headphone jack. And it has a little OLED screen on the back, and then two touch programmable buttons, so that you can map any of the face buttons or any of the shoulder buttons to the these new add-on buttons. And then that's basically all it is. It's just like a little attachment that adds extra buttons to the DualShock 4, and it seems very odd, and I don't know who was really asking for something like this. But do you guys think that it is an indication of PlayStation 5 DualShock potentially? And
yes.
And that they want, because it seems like the next generation are going to be backwards compatible. Maybe they want the DualShock 4 to also be backwards compatible if you have this attachment.
Yeah.
That's my suspicion.
I suspect that it's more an indication that the next controller is not going to change much at all. Because why release this thing late in the life cycle if it's not going to be compatible with the next controller?
Okay, so you think that this will also be used for the DualShock 5?
Yeah. I think it's one option.
Okay, I think that this will be a feature of the DualShock 5.
I could see that potentially, because it kind of matches what the Xbox Pro controller does, where you can actually have those flappy buttons underneath it. But at that point, why not just do a Pro controller? So I don't think they're actually going to change the layout of the new controller. I think that this will just remain an option. I think that it'll basically be the same controller, but it's offering a feature that if you wanted that on the PlayStation 4, you actually needed to get a special adapter that you could actually plug an Xbox Pro controller into the PlayStation 4. Now you don't need to do that. Yeah, because that was a thing you can do. You can actually plug an Xbox controller into a PlayStation 4 through an adapter. So now without needing to go and buy that adapter or anything and doing weird stuff, you can have the back buttons. So the thing I find weirdest about it, honestly, is that it has an OLED screen on the back.
I mean, I understand why they do, because I think that the programmable nature of it, you actually need to see a bit more input information on it. But I agree.
But that's only weird when you're programming it, right? Like you're not flipping it around and looking at it when you're using it.
It's a hell of a feature. And it looks really chunky. Like I'm not just looking at it, I'm not sure I'm impressed. But
I don't think it looks nice, and I don't want one. I'm not. It actually looks kind of ugly, I think.
It's also like if you have a charging stand for a PlayStation controller, that actively disables you from using it.
Only while the thing's attached, though. You can quite easily take it out to charge.
Yeah, but now you have to take a thing off every single time you want to sit it down to charge. So, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
Well, I mean, I've got a similar sort of attachment on my Xbox controller, which prevents me from charging it in this. Actually, no, it doesn't, because the port is around the other way. But similar to this, like I've got a headphone jack adapter on this, which kind of plugs onto the bottom. It's this big chunky thing that you can sort of take off, and it looks like that. So similar kind of design. This one's got like volume controls and bits and pieces on it.
Interesting.
So, but the thing that I was most concerned about when I purchased this is that it would get in the way of gaming and sort of be this big thing sort of in the middle of the controller that would feel uncomfortable. But it hasn't at all. Like you totally don't even notice it's there. And I think in terms of the PS4 controller, that big sort of circular chunky bit will be a kind of similar case. And aesthetically, it does kind of match the circular bits on the control too. So it doesn't look super out of place. It kind of does match the look and feel. So, I don't know. I don't mind it, actually. I was most concerned that it was going to overwrite the the spot for the headphone jack.
Oh yeah, but it has
Yeah.
a pass through.
Which is good, because if it wasn't for that, I'd be like a hell no, I don't want it sort of thing. 'Cause I can think of multiple games that actually have moves in them that are mapped to the simultaneous pressing of two buttons on the controller. So, and that's like for the sheer reason that they've just ran out of buttons. So,
Yeah.
I can think of that being a huge benefit if you can map them to the back controls instead. Like, I'm sure that Destiny would probably be a good example of that, because like the Destiny supers on PlayStation, if I'm not mistaken, a double shoulder button to activate.
Yeah, I don't think that's necessarily bad design though.
No, I don't think it's bad design, but I think
case,
it's just good for people who don't like to have to do that.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm putting it on the back and being like, so now that back left bumper button is like throwing your grenade, and the right is to melee, and then both is to super. That would be kind of nice, because then you just have aim down sights and shoot on the triggers, right? So that could actually be like really, really good. But the improvement in gameplay you're going to feel is going to be minuscule for that adjustment.
Oh yeah, it'll totally just be something that people get used to. Yeah.
It's for those people that want to play much more competitive. So, definitely.
But Christian, in terms of your question about what this means to the PS5 controller, I very much think that this is almost exactly the same kind of evolution of like the DualShock 3 to the 4 with regards to the face button. So
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of PlayStation 4 games that don't use this at all, and I think some that use it extremely well. But it'll be one of those things moving into PS5 as well. I think that there'll be like a handful of games that make really good use of those extra buttons, but there'll be most that don't. But you'll kind of want to have them just in case. So
Potentially.
yeah.
I could see it happening. I do think they'll probably end up sticking with the same controller design.
Yeah, I think that that face touch thing, that might be a screen on the DualShock 5.
That would be cool.
The existing front
Oh
face.
yeah, I could so see that happening. Yeah.
Yeah.
I hope that if they do have rear buttons in that position built onto the controller, I just hope that they are like optional and disableable sometimes. Like I don't want a situation like with the Vita, with the rear touch on the Vita, where you press it accidentally a lot of the time just because of how you hold the thing. So I don't want to accidentally press these buttons and do something.
Yeah.
I think that the Xbox Pro controller has been designed for that reason, that you can just like take them off, and now they're not a concern to accidentally bump them. So
yeah, I think they'd be smart enough to figure that out.
yeah, I hope so.
Yeah. No, I mean, the DualShock 4 is currently my favorite console controller, and I don't see this being a negative to it at all. I think, if anything, they make it slightly more ergonomic in the next one. So
literally all I want is so that you can actually turn off the light bar instead of just being able to dim it for games that don't use it. Because that's the one thing you can't do, is turn off the damn light bar.
I think that'll be a game-by-game basis, though, because we know certain games that change the color of that light bar. So it's definitely...
Yeah, but I don't care. I just want to turn it off. I don't care. Because there are a lot of games that's like, oh, it's red when your health is low. Whatever.
You want that light on the front.
I want that light off.
If anybody wants to get me a Christmas present, get me with the new classic Xbox controller. They actually
I did see that. Yeah, like the fat OG one.
Yep, the fat OG one, because I fucking love that controller. It's so big, and the revamped version of it actually has an LCD screen.
Oh, is that the Duke? No. They call it the Duke?
Yeah, it's the Duke.
Yeah,
it's apparently at EB Games, so go get me one.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's disgusting. Anyway,
fuck you. You're disgusting.
Can't control me. Anywho, speaking of other cool sort of extra bits and things that are controllable, I wanted to chat tonight about a new update that's actually just launching for No Man's Sky, which that's a game we haven't heard a little bit about for a while, since they did the big VR update and the last sort of huge content thing. But yeah, No Man's Sky is back in the news again this week because they've got a new patch that has just kind of stealth dropped out of nowhere that I don't think people were knowing was coming. And they've added something to the game which I think is super cool, and this exists in a few games now, Minecraft being one, Warframe being another one. They've actually done some really cool stuff in Warframe with this. But No Man's Sky now, you can actually create your own music. So they've added a bunch of these different things to the game, which basically it's labeled as a full audio creation application that they're calling the ByteBeat device. So it's a machine that you build through getting blueprints from the Space Anomaly, like a lot of the other stuff in the game, and then you put it down in your world, and it will create like a procedurally generated tune or even individual noises that you sequenced in. And the cool thing is that you can arrange different tracks and make melody and drum beats and all that sort of stuff, but you can also stack them. So similar to how you can do it in Minecraft, where you can get like individual note blocks and then sort of electronically connect them together to fire at different intervals and that sort of stuff, you can do that with this too, but it's got a lot more customizable sort of granularity to how you can make the different sounds work in it as well. And you can see from the imagery here that people are doing some pretty fucking wild stuff with it, like creating full-on dance floor disco areas and sort of setting it up. And I'm sure
it is this game now. This looks
No Man's Sky.
I know, it's sick, hey. So yeah, No Man's Sky is just one of those games that just keeps on giving. It's great.
Yeah, it strikes me as the sort of thing that was probably made in like a game jam, and like the team liked it so much that they were like, we need to actually polish this up and put it in. And so it was one of those like features that wasn't expected to end out in the final game, but just was so good that they put it in, because it is so out of place. Like in Minecraft, like the music block thing is super simple, and the complex part is hooking it all up to make music, right? Whereas this is a whole fucking music program basically built in. It's just insane.
Yeah.
It's total overkill, but I love it.
Yeah. So cue this micro sort of cottage industry of people creating YouTube videos on how to create these dope beats and sort of sick music arrangements. It's going to be like absolutely chaos.
Yeah, there are people making albums and getting YouTube famous.
Yeah. So obviously Hello Games has seen Dreams now has a release date, and they're like, how can we get onto that design your own shit bandwagon?
Yeah. But again, like we've talked about in the past, even if I was playing No Man's Sky, I would have no interest in actually making my own music.
I would be much more interested in indulging in other people's created content than making my own, definitely.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure we'll see some pretty awesome stuff that'll do the rounds once people really get their teeth into it. So, yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, that aside, let's do a quick sort of wrap discussion on our experience with the Game Awards last week. So the three of us, of course, managed to hop on and actually stream our reactions and commentary to the show. So I think our general thoughts were that we weren't that kind of jazzed by the whole thing this year. So
no,
yeah.
I thought it was bad. I thought it was a bad show.
Yeah.
There was a few things that were pointed out that were massively problematic, like the fact that every music category was actually in the pre-show and kind of like just treated as this throwaway thing. It's a missed opportunity to actually play people's soundtracks from the music from those different games.
Apart from the medley at the end, but yeah.
Apart from the medley at the end, yeah. And then like the way that some of the awards were done, and it was literally like, winning this award and also this one is such and such. Like that happened to Disco Elysium twice. And we missed it both times that happened. Yeah. It took us actually having to go and find it elsewhere to figure that out. It just, and so much, the fucking advertising. I really want to go back. I don't want to go back. I don't want to actually do this. But
break down figure out the breakdown. Yeah,
because I really do think that it was probably like 60% fucking advertising.
Yeah.
And given how much time they dedicated to advertising and having weird stage stuff and everything like that, it feels like the show could be an hour shorter, and be like way more succinct and actually give people time to give acceptance speeches and everything. Which I think is one of the big things that they kind of took away from a lot of those winners. Like, Disco Elysium should have had 4 opportunities to get up on stage and say something nice. But that was kind of taken away by, we're going to do a Green Day live show now. It's, just a little bit odd.
Yeah.
I my feeling about the Game Awards is that like Keighley is obviously trying to emulate established award shows, like the format for an established award show, like the Golden Globes or the Oscars. And in order to sustain that scale of production, it's clear that he has to take so many advertisers to maintain that. But I don't see that as an excuse. I see that as a reason why it shouldn't be at this scale. Like if I feel like if he has to put this many ads in, it's not worth it. It's not worth it for me. I would much rather it scale back, even but just for my taste, do it like a direct. It doesn't even need to be a live show. I get why it's nice to have everyone from the industry come together and blah 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 blah. But I'm not there. I don't care about that. Like I just want to see, I care about the recognition of the games. But I don't want to have to sit through all this crap. Like so just scale it back if you need to and get rid of the ads.
I think there's some tenuous links to some of the more I guess wider world pop culture elements that are a little bit of a weird fit with the show, and I think Green Day is a good example. I mean, the reason why they were there, I suspect, is that they've actually got new musical content available in Beat Saber. But it's also a bit of a chicken and egg question, because did that happen as a result of this, or did this happen as a result of that? So,
did they need to do 2 songs?
Yeah, and they were old songs too. They weren't anything new either, so that was a bit disappointing. But then there was the other thing where, like, you had Michelle Rodriguez and Vin Diesel basically close out the show and present Game of the Year.
With the showing off, like a PS3 game.
They just lagged on.
So that game that they were showing off, like, granted, it didn't look like the greatest thing in the world, but I think that, like, if that had have been part of the show earlier on, it wouldn't have been an issue at all, really. You sure get some major celebrities who actually are fairly known in the public eye of being involved in the gaming scene somewhat. Like Vin, especially with regards to D&D, he's had a lot of contact with that side of the industry. Michelle Rodriguez, I'm not quite sure, but I'll give her the benefit of the doubt.
She's more in the going to jail for DUI and hit and run. Sort of thing.
Sure. So Need for Speed Hot Pursuit. Cool. So I don't know, but like earlier in the show, like I don't think that they're sort of outside of the games industry celebrity status should give them any extra standing when it comes to being the ones that announce Game of the Year, because that's really bad for me. So yeah. But the advertising's a weird one. Like I think over the last sort of it's 5 years of the show we've had now, we've seen different sort of degrees of how Keeley's handled the advertising sort of for the show. We've had really cringe sort of moments during the production where they've had like the Chic Hydra bot live sitting in the audience like doing dances and standing up and that kind of stuff, which is just just gets memed on ridiculously hard, which is kind of cool in the way that it does. But and then you've got like huge amounts of product placement during the awards. You've got massive sponsorship of awards or segments, like what we saw with Subway this year sponsoring the indie game, and then you've got the actual sort of ad spots throughout the show. And I think each year the sort of weighting has been different with each of those, and this is the first year that I feel they've done the weighting really hard on just the ad spots between segments themselves. And I think that probably was the worst way they've done it. Like the way they handled the advertising last year, I think was better, where they had a bit more of a balance. So I think they just need to find that sweet spot. They've obviously got to advertise, but I think finding the sweet spot is kind of where they need to be. So yeah.
I think like the show, like I totally get why Keighley keeps pushing it to be bigger and bigger. Because and I'm gonna be totally honest, it is entirely wanky, but I kind of like the fact that it's wanky.
Yeah, I disagree from Christian in that respect too. Like, I actually like the pomp.
Yeah,
yeah.
Like, I think that games should have an awards night because they're bigger than film. So why not actually start celebrating creators in a big event like that, right? Like, I think that is totally worth it for that rather than just a direct. But it is wank. Like, let's be 100% honest. Just like the Golden Globes and everything are totally wank. This is also wank.
But they're wank that has the money behind it to actually.
That's exactly right. Yeah, it's wank that doesn't need to do 60% of the wank in advertising. Yeah. So, I agree on that point. Like, I think that they need to find a way to do their advertising, but also keep it, being wanky.
but Christian,
I don't mind that.
Christian, as an example of you as like one particular audience subset for this kind of thing, I think that you're the sort of audience that would be perfectly generally happy to read about who the winners were the next day and watch separate video clips of any of the critical announcements as opposed to watching the entire show itself.
I'd be fine with that, but I enjoy watching it live, but not when it's constantly interrupted by ads.
Yeah,
I like it. but I don't like the ads. That's simple as that.
Or there's the other model that I think I mentioned to you guys on stream, which they haven't done before, which would be if there was actually like a subscriber model version of the show for people that could cut out a lot of that content.
Yeah.
So I think it'd be hard to sever it completely cleanly because of the way that it's integrated so heavily, but perhaps like a good chunk of it, maybe they could explore that as an option.
But like, why should they have to do that? Like you're saying, Matt, like video games are bigger than film now, but like the Oscars aren't packed full of ads.
Yeah.
Like
It's a question of how did the Oscars get away without packing themselves full of ads, right?
because there's enough money, behind
the Oscars.
behind the Oscars.
And I think that what needs to happen is that the Game Awards need to be kind of recognized as the Game Awards, right? And once they have that kind of recognition, then they basically become the gaming version of the Oscars. They have that, Microsoft clearly takes them seriously because they announced a fucking console at them. So next time, maybe Microsoft will turn around and say, hey, look, we're going to actually fund you to do this because it gives us an opportunity to get up on stage and talk about shit.
Starts to get murky, though, with regards to the conflict of interest, which is the problem.
Totally.
So,
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. But I also guarantee that, whoever is sponsoring those big awards nights and everything like that, like a single category and renaming it freshest game, they're not having a single Subway ad. Is not going to give you a lot of money, right? Like that might be, if they're lucky, like 10 grand or something like that to put freshest in the front of an award category, right? It's probably a really, really minuscule amount. And whereas all those advertising that get up in your face, it's gonna be way more money behind that. And I think it just basically needs to be that. Conflict of interest if Microsoft goes and puts a whole bunch of money behind it, but then why isn't Sony? So
I think it's just the absence of any sort of academy organization, which is what exists in the film and TV sort of space, where it literally is the Academy Awards because of its namesake. There is no video games industry academy. I think the closest thing we've got to that is one that is perhaps not in the best light in the media at the moment because of certain things that have happened in recent years. So, and they're not one that's based around being a nexus for a huge amount of revenue flow either. So, yeah, it's a tricky situation, but
there are other video game award shows, rather. Like there's the DICE Awards. It's a thing, right? And then there's and what was the other one? I can't remember. But there are other video game awards, and I think that they don't need to put in all this like wank and ads like the VGAs do to be legitimate. I don't like it.
But by the same token, there's no reason why it hurts the industry to have both of those things. So DICE can still exist and this can still exist, sort of thing.
I think it hurts the representation of the industry somewhat for any outsiders who check it out and they see how infested it is with corporate advertising, and they think, oh, this like it doesn't have the look of like maturity to it. Because of all the ads, anti-vape ads. Like,
if you were somebody that had only seen the Logies and then went and watched the Game Developers Award, the Game Awards or whatever, like you'd be like, what the fuck is this? Why is there so much advertising? Because you're used to the Logies. I agree. Like if you want to be taken seriously, the advertising needs to cut back. And they need to hide the advertising a little bit more than they have, or go back to doing fucking Chic Hyrobot, because as memey as that was, it was amusing.
Definitely.
Whereas constant ads in your face is not amusing. It's frustrating.
It was amusing, and it was like it was on the spot. It was in the crowd, part of the show. Yeah. So it felt the
show didn't end.
The show didn't end. Yeah, it just felt better rather than just a canned ad. And those ads were repeating as well. We saw the same ad multiple times.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. Yeah.
Making it direct. Nintendo has the right idea with everything. Just make it.
Well, not everybody can emulate that perfectly well. I mean, Sony's tried and not done great, so we'll see. Yeah. One thing I will say about the Game Awards, though, is in terms of who actually got each award, I was generally pretty freaking happy this year with who got what. So I think,
mostly.
Yeah, I mean, there was a lot of subjectivity that things could have gone either way with regards to some of the major categories, but it certainly wasn't the Death Stranding awards throughout the entire night. I think they got one, maybe two, nods.
One.
They got two and Mads, right? They got director,
True.
soundtrack, and Mads.
Yeah, and get best game direction. I think is fairly deserved if they were going to get anything too. So I felt fine about that. But sleeper winner coming out at the end, Sekiro getting game of the year. I mean, we didn't think that was going to happen, and Adrian doubled down on actually thinking that it was, because he wanted to bet on the side of light and not darkness. So, yeah.
But just despite that, it wasn't enough for Adrian to actually scrape out of last place in our bets. And congratulations to Matt for winning, we should say. So Matt won our Video Game Awards, The Game, followed by myself, followed by Luke, followed by Adrian.
Mm-hmm.
I had to vote for Fortnite to win that. I hope you're happy. No, for me, the big winner out of the Game Awards, totally Disco Elysium. 4 awards. I'm pretty sure it took away more awards this year than what Red Dead had taken away last year when we were calling it the Red Dead Award.
Yeah.
And it's just, the thing that pisses me off is that it's an indie game. It won 4 awards, but only 2 of them were on stage. That's really unfortunate in my mind.
Yeah. Two big titles that got very much overlooked throughout all of the awards as well were Resident Evil 2 Remake and Outer Wilds as well.
Oh, yeah. Outer Wilds got... I want to say it was cheated, but I'm also really happy about this winning as many awards as it did. So,
yeah. But anyway, that's it for another year. So we'll see how things shape out next year. I think there's going to be a fair bit of competition up those top spots from what we know is coming out next year already. It's going to be a tight year. So, yeah. But anyway, that is a whole year away. We are now here to chat about the good stuff this year. So let's kick off with part 2 of our Party Favorites 2019. So, categories for tonight. Let's kick off with, I think we can do, first up, our favourite moment and or sequence in video game this year. So, let's do that second. Sorry, I'm out of order. Game feature or mechanic we're going to do first. Sorry, my bad. Getting my notes wrong. All right, so do we want to see if Adrian's actually available to jump in and chat to this now? Because I think I just saw a little pop up from him saying that he was conscious and ready to jump in. So,
okay,
should we give him a go?
Well, let's add
All right, let's get the paddles. see how he's doing. All right. So anyway, while we're connecting to Adrian, so this category, basically the best game feature or mechanic, is about sort of things in the games, like in terms of the systems and the way things work, like whether it's a weapon or a combat system or like a way that something functions that makes it different or unique to other games, and stuff that out of the games that have released this year, we think is quite unique and different, has caught our eye and sort of really drawn us to that game. So, and they may not necessarily be entirely new features or systems. It could be things that we've seen before that have been executed in a better or different way. That's basically what the category is all about. So, while we're connecting to Adrian, I think we could probably kick off. So,
well, he's ready to connect now.
Oh,
so
all right. Let's dial him in. All right.
Invite.
So my favorite... My favourite system or mechanic is bringing Adrian back from the dead.
Not mine.
No. All right. So, I out of the ones we're talking about tonight, I found this probably the toughest, but still wasn't too hard.
Yeah, the same for me, actually. This is the only category that I changed my decision today. I flipped it today. So.
Oh, really?
Yep.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All
So
right.
we need to add Adrian to the call.
All right.
And we're adding him. Adrian's going to be right here in just a second. Making a grand debut.
Yep. Yay, live shows! So
the Game Awards, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And, we didn't even talk about the game announcements and how there wasn't really that much of interest, and how I don't like that Keighley. It seems like there's this pressure to always go on about how it's going to be the best year ever this year, and he was going on like, we've got more announcements this year than ever before, but quality over quantity, mate. Come on.
Yeah.
That being said, they announced a new console, which hasn't happened.
The console announcement was cool.
That was cool, but yeah, I get it. Like they showed the new console and they got the name of the new console, but it wasn't really like a substantive like demonstration of the console or anything like that, or like
It should have been
specs or
followed up.
features.
Yeah, like here's an announcement of the console, and if you at that moment a press release went out actually describing more detail.
Yeah, because literally the only thing we know more about the Xbox than the PlayStation 5 is what it looks like. All the other details are already known about PS5.
This isn't fair to it. To be fair, we also learned that it's not called the Xbox Series X.
It's called the Xbox.
It's called the Xbox. Though I had pointed out on Twitter that Xbox Series X means it's now the Sexbox.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. So we've gone from Xbox 360 to Xbox 69. That's great. Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. No, I think that the best thing about the Series X sort of segment was not actually the console itself, but it was the trailer from Ninja Theory's new Hellblade 2. Senua Saga.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that trailer was sick. I was a
Visually,
huge fan
it was
of
very cool, yeah.
Audibly as well. Like, I thought that the really sort of dark, sort of tribal music, sort of with the sort of evil chanting that kind of led that off was really, really cool. And Senua, compared to her character in Senua's Sacrifice, looked pretty freaking evil in this one. Like, really angry and dark and maybe a bit more malicious than what she appeared in the last game, where she was very much the underdog and, you know, a victim of circumstance in a lot of cases. So, yeah.
The last game was all about being an allegory for depression and mental health issues. So I could see this one continuing on with that allegory, but coming at it from a different angle, which is why she might look angry and evil, because, you know, it could still be about depression and mental health issues, but instead could be coming at it from an angle of, you know, like dealing with that with anger issues, for example, or something like that. It could be a really interesting kind of take on the story.
Yeah. Anger, rage, hate, all these things lead to the dark side. Yeah. Pretty much. So, yeah.
Don't go quoting the prequel trilogy to me.
No, I mean, Star Wars is out tomorrow, so it's on the mind at the moment. So what can I say?
True.
Yeah. But no.
It's better than the prequel trilogy.
Yeah. No, look, cool. I mean, there were no other massive sort of game releases, I don't think. Yeah.
I'm keen for Bravely Default 2, but that was a weird release because there's already a game called Bravely Second, which was a canonical sequel to Bravely Default. And now they're doing Bravely Default 2, so I'm not sure what's going on with the naming convention there, but...
Hey! Welcome. All right. How you feeling? You look like death warmed up.
I think I have been the sickest I've ever been, without a doubt.
Was it
the Real Game Award?
It's been... it's been very unpleasant.
It's awful.
Like, it's been bad.
But laughter is the best medicine, so...
Yeah.
Stop taking every other medicine. Stop seeing doctors. Just laugh, Adrian.
Just laugh.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Like, we will laugh at you because you being sick is funny.
It's just me laughing.
Mm-hmm. I've got into a children's hospital before and just laughed at them all, and I got kicked out. I was just trying to help them.
Awesome.
I remember seeing that on the news, I think. I'm just banking all this goodwill for when Matt has his wisdom tooth surgery, and then we'll see how much comedy.
I was always going to get shit. It's fine.
Yeah, this is you getting some preemptive strikes in beforehand.
Not even that. It's just me just treating you as normal.
So I guess the one question we all had, Adrian, was it the shinies that made you sick?
I think it's
asbestos.
I think more asbestos. I literally watched that Simpsons episode last night, and I said to Shantae, like, I think I chanted asbestos on the podcast the other week.
Fantastic.
And like, no one knew what it was from. And I was like, from the Simpsons. For all those interested, all the listeners at home, I know the three of you are aware, but I got the shiny.
Yay!
And what was the final hour count in the end?
154.5 hours.
Okay, so not that much more than when we talked last week.
No, not too. I caught it sort of a couple of days after we podcasted last week. The final count was over 8,500 wild encounters and over 506 eggs bred. And then I got it, and it obviously validates every form of bias I ever had, and that it's a completely legitimate method. Like there was absolutely no reason not to do it, and my chances were always guaranteed. So I don't think there was any downside to that endeavor at all. As far
Have
as
you
I'm
actually?
concerned.
I want to know. Have you booted the game since?
Yeah. In fact, that's one of my things I wanted to talk about tonight, if I may briefly do a little condensed version of your
All right, Matt.
of your segments.
Matt, we're hopping in the sundial. We're dialing it back to the past in this episode. All right, what's your This Week in Gaming update?
Okay,
Adrian?
so my week of gaming, the first thing I'll start off with is not Pokemon related, actually. I did play, because I've been so incredibly, excuse me.
That actually works.
Yeah. Because I've been so incredibly sick, I did manage to find something else to take up my time, and I played Darksiders Genesis,
Oh, cool.
which is the isometric Darksiders, the fourth Darksiders game. So traditionally, each Darksiders game is focused on one of the four horsemen. First came War, then came Death, then came Fury. And the three of those have all been the same kind of game, a third-person sort of combat brawler. The fourth one was a bit of a departure from the genre and instead went for this isometric sort of, what do they call them? Like Diablo? What's that genre again? My brain's...
Isometric RPG.
Slasher, yeah.
the
Hack and
tactical...
slash.
Yeah.
Whatever.
I don't know.
The dungeon crawler sort of style.
Yeah. I can't remember the name. It's lost on me. But it's that kind of style. And what surprised me is that it's a bit more action orientated than I was anticipating. So it's just a little step further than Diablo in that it really is like a combat game, and the combat is real time. And there aren't really... Oh, no, there are numbers, but it's way less sort of RPG focused and far more action focused. There is like a skill tree, etc. And it's okay. It's only about $50 on Steam, and I feel that price does reflect sort of the experience you can expect from the game. It's good, but it's boring. Like it gets boring pretty quickly, and it was obviously designed as a co-op experience because you play as Strife, which is the newest horseman, and his personality is kind of in that trend of what people like now, where he's like Deadpool mixed with Cade Six.
Sounds awful.
Yeah, it's just like that. It's one of those sort of people that you would hate to run into at a convention.
Yep.
Yeah. So he's that kind of personality, and War is just straight up boring. If you've ever played the Darksiders game, he's just the total straight man. And they try to bank on the comic foil to the straight man kind of formula, but the characters aren't that interesting. Anyway, the game's fine. I've put it down and I'm not that interested in it anymore. The combat's repetitive, but it's okay. If you love Darksiders, you'll probably like this. If you like Darksiders, you'll probably get bored.
Right.
There was a few people that played this at PAX Australia this year because they did actually have a demo on the show floor. Matt, were you one of the ones that checked it out? No, some of the other people we were traveling with, yeah. And they didn't seem too hot on it after playing it on the floor. So, yeah.
Like it
is snappy. Like the combat does have good feedback and it does feel good. But the worlds are very empty and bland, and it's not randomly generated. So they like to talk about how it's got good replay because you do get new abilities that you can then go back to older levels and like get into new areas. But it's a common problem that we've talked about before, where those new areas, all they're giving you is like some paltry little upgrades a lot of the time, or sometimes there are new skills, but the skills are a bit, naff. So it's kind of a taste thing, I think. Like some people may like it, some people may not like it. So
yeah, fair.
On the Pokemon front, to answer your earlier question, Luke, I didn't put it down after getting my shiny. In fact, I went even harder and completed the full Pokedex.
Okay,
so
that's okay. I thought you were about to say you went even harder and went for another shiny. I was like, oh, God.
It's funny you should say that because That is what I'm doing now.
Oh my god!
Really?
So the
Same
progression,
one, but better IVs.
the progression was shiny, then full Pokedex, then 6 IV breeding, and now I've decided I want another shiny. So I'm doing that at the moment.
Which Pokemon?
Crustle. It's the hermit crab with the big rock on its back.
Yep.
I like it because it's quite a drastic palette swap. But one thing I do want to talk about is that through all this hardcore IV training that I've done, I've discovered that Pokemon Shield, I'm not sure if you guys are aware, but Pokemon Shield is riddled with hacks. And I don't mean hacked Pokemon. I mean, there are like dozens of ways to cheat the game to get what you need.
Right.
And some of these things are really interesting, and they all revolve around the suspend state on the Switch. So you can suspend your Switch, and then because a lot of the systems in Pokemon are dictated by the date and the time, and a lot of the events and items and systems that happen in the wild area are reset on a clock. So what it means is that you can use that to your advantage to trick the game into thinking 24 hours has passed. And what it will actually do will reset spawns and change the things ways work. So to give you a very brief example, this is the way I used it the most, is to fill out my Pokedex. There are certain Pokemon in the Pokedex that normally you would need to trade with other people to evolve. Now, a good example might be something like a Gengar. Now, Gengar, normally you have to trade a Haunter to get a Gengar. But what you can do instead is Gengar is available to catch in raid battles. But because the raid battles are random all over the wild area, you never know the chances of one appearing. But what you can do is that you can there's an item in the game called a wishing piece. If you throw a wishing piece into a raid den, it starts a raid, and then it will tell you what Pokemon it is. If you then suspend the game and change the date and do a little other fiddles, it will reset the Pokemon that's in the den. So you can just keep resetting the den until you get a Gengar, and then you can catch it. So there were quite a few really hard to find Pokemon that I did that for. Things like evolutions that require specific items, like Rhyperior. Rhyperior is the evolution of Rhydon that requires you to attach an item and then send it to another player, which is annoying because you need the item, you need the Rhydon, and you need a player. Or you can go to a raid den and then like look up the Pokemon on a website, look up the raid den, look up the chances of it appearing, and then just spam the raid den until it appears. So that's a good example. And that's also a really other good way to get high IV Dittos, which only spawn in one specific den. So that's really convenient. So you can just spam that den and get like tons of Dittos. You can also do things like there's an area in the wild where a piece of rare candy will spawn. You can technically reset that rare candy spot over and over again and get unlimited rare candy.
Right.
You can play the ID lotto unlimited times. So normally that's limited to once a day. So there's a whole bunch of these like hacks that you can do through the process of using the date change option by suspending the game and changing the date. So really interesting. And I'm guilty of doing almost all of them. And I justify it by the fact that I put 150 hours into Shiny. All bets are off. The only line I won't cross is an actual hacked Pokemon. So I won't do that, but I will take any measure necessary to get what I want outside of that.
You're not using a third-party service or software. You're using the game as it is. So I think that's probably like a lot more within the realms of acceptability.
Totally.
Creative use of game mechanics.
That's right. That's right.
Fine.
The only thing worth noting is that it's going a bit long, so I'll be quick again. But when you play Pokemon Shield or Sword in the wild area, you can either be connected to the internet or not connected to the internet. So what happens is when you start a raid battle, you can create like a lobby for a group of people to join you in that raid battle. You can do that offline, and it just like infinitely searches for people and never goes anywhere. Or you can do it online, in which case it creates a public raid that people can join. The only problem is with this exploit of changing the date is that some people are doing it in online mode, which is filling the lobbies with empty raid battles. And it's basically destroyed the online raiding community for Pokemon Sword and Shield. So that is one massive downside, is that you can do it in offline mode, in which case there's no impact on other people. But if you do it while online, it's creating like an infinite amount of empty lobbies, and it's just making it impossible for people to join any kind of raid. So people have kind of given up on that in a way, which is kind of sad.
That sounds like something that Game Freak will never fix.
Yeah.
Hopefully they do,
No, it's pretty, like, people are pretty happy with the amount of hacks in the game because their track record is like, this is never ever going to be fixed. So, fortunately, there's nothing game breaking at this point. It's just kind of taking the obnoxious parts of the game and making them like farmable in like a reasonable amount of time. So that's it, and that's all I've been playing. So I've been doing, and despite what I've said about Pokemon Shield, it's actually made it really fun, like finding all these little exploits and going around and, you know, getting that rare resource here and, you know, getting a really cool Pokemon here and completing the Pokedex was a real sense of achievement. So that felt really great. And I did most of it legitimately without having to span those raid dens. It was only maybe half a dozen Pokemon I had to do that for. And the rest I traded. Christian traded me quite a few, which really helped in the end. And I also joined the Pokemon Discord, which really helped me get quite a few trades as well. So that's been really good too. So,
if only there was a hack that allowed you to hack the extra 600 or so Pokemon back into the game.
that would be good. Yeah, I mean, who knows? I mean, it would be great if they added more Pokemon in, but I don't know how. I don't know if that's ever going to happen. Who knows what Game Freak?
I think they've said pretty categorically that they're not going to do that for DLC for this one. Yeah,
we'll see. Yeah.
All right. Well, cool. I think that's actually a much more useful, creative use of your time. So well done. It's good. All right, well,
thank you. But like I say, I am back on the shiny hunt. So we'll see how that.
All right. Well, let's give you a brief chance to rest. We'll kick off the party favorites category for favorite feature or mechanic. So Matt, anyway, over to you. So what was your favorite feature or mechanic in a video game this year? Kick us off.
So I had a hard time with this, not because I had a hard time picking the right game, but a hard time picking the mechanic in the game. So I just ended out basically saying the entirety of the Outer Wild.
That's
because
fair.
like there is this exploration mechanic in the Outer Wilds, which is basically like the core mechanic, the core feature of the game. But it attaches to everything. Like everything you do in the game comes back to exploration. So there are like puzzles in the game world that you have to solve, but the way that you solve them is by exploring more to gather information to understand how to solve those puzzles. So it is all kind of like around that major exploration mechanic. And it's just such a really cool, interesting way of kind of dealing with puzzles and everything. It's been a major motivation for me with the game that I'm working on.
So all I got from that was that it's about exploring and solving puzzles.
Yeah, it's exploring and solving puzzles is basically the major mechanics of Outer Wilds, right?
Okay.
So you find an area, and it's clearly of some importance, but you don't understand how to do anything in it. So you go out and you explore more, and then you find like a little piece of information that directly references locations like that one you found. That might be like, if you stand in this location and then look upwards, and when the planet overhead that you want to go to travels overhead, you can do something.
But you're also on a run timer, aren't you?
Yes.
Yeah.
So every single run only lasts for like 20 odd minutes.
Right.
So you basically are learning how to deal with these things, and then going back to the locations where you know now how to actually activate that puzzle or activate that object.
So it's not not puzzle like fit like
Witness,
like rotate a circle into another circle or something.
Yeah.
It's
nothing like that. Yeah. It's basically like it's all environmental kind of storytelling puzzles, essentially.
Okay. I suspect that Matt's being a little bit coy about some of it because some of it's pretty spoiler heavy. So
the game will be spoiled if I tell you how to do things.
Right.
Like, if you know how to solve the puzzles, I can go back and I can finish Outer Wilds in 20 minutes.
Sure, right.
But start to finish learning all the puzzles and solving them, it's like a 10-hour game.
Okay.
So you need to be actually kind of coy on those things, because if I told you how to solve puzzle or how to get around the space or you know what black holes do or how to get to the mysterious hidden planet and everything like that.
Witnessy sounds a bit
it's very witnessy. and it's incredibly unique, kind of as a feature for a game. I've not actually seen a game lean so heavily into exploration in the way that Outer Wilds does, and tie it so closely into its puzzle mechanics. So yeah, 100%. Just the entirety of the Outer Wilds is a really, really brilliant like exploration mechanic. Yeah.
Cool.
I strongly suspect that if I had have played this game, it may have been on mine as well. But yeah. All right, well, Christian, you go next. What do you got for yours?
My favorite game feature / mechanic is the parry posture system from Sekiro. So the way that it blurs the lines between offense and defense, where when you time your parries effectively, you are building up a gauge on the enemy that once filled breaks their posture and leaves them open for an attack. So by playing a perfect defensive strategy, you are essentially inflicting damage on the opponent. But you can't just rely on that. You do also need to attack. And there's just a really nice balance that the game strikes between offense and defense. And it sounds, I guess, quite simple just to say it's offense and defense, and they're both fun. But it's just done in a really satisfying way. And like in a lot of games, defense is very passive feeling. Like if you block an attack, the result of that is you don't take damage. But that's kind of where it stops and starts. But so by tying defense into like a more satisfying overall flow of the combat, I really, really enjoyed that.
Yeah.
Sweet. Yeah, no, it is a very, very good mechanic. I think that I enjoyed that aspect of the game as well, but I found it very, very difficult. So I think it's also one that would be certain people's tastes and not others.
Sure, yeah, because it is something that it's not you can't just block. You need to parry at the right time. So it's the fact that it's not just holding a block button. It's parrying an attack that is really satisfying.
Yeah.
But Jedi Fallen Order basically has 100% stolen that mechanic. But I don't think they lean into it quite so heavily as Sekiro asks you to. Yeah,
they've got a weirder sort of diversity of opponents as well, I think, which makes it mix up a bit more. But
Sure.
All right, well, I'll jump in next before Adrian. So my favourite feature or mechanic this year, it very likely would have been other things had I actually spent more time playing some other games that I know had some very strong mechanics. But the one that actually connected with me the most this year was actually the adaptation of VR in No Man's Sky that got added. So I thought as far as like a 2019 release, No Man's Sky, I'm going to get it messed up here. Is it Beyond or Next? It's Beyond. Yeah, it's Beyond.
One of them.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it's Beyond. Was basically like a huge release for that game that added VR to the game, which cost $0. So it was completely free for people who own the game already. You just had to download the update. But the sort of adaptation of virtual reality for this game in terms of the way that it was implemented. You could actually grab guns off your backpack and fire them. You could sort of, control all the different elements in the cockpits when you're in vehicles. Like when you're in a ship, you could literally grab the handles on either side of the canopy and like pull the entire canopy off to let yourself out of the ship. The way that you could actually punch resources by actually literally punching them to gather stuff in game and like fight stuff. And just the way that they did it across the board just blew my mind with how excellent it was. Like, I think that VR has had some hit or misses with regards to games that have tried to go like as kind of like simulation to real life as possible, but this is the closest I've actually found it's come that still works within the mechanics of the game and thoroughly immerses you in the game world. Like, it was an absolute masterstroke for free that they added to this game, and I love the hell out of it. It's something that I only like to play in No Man's Sky in moderation. Like, I wouldn't play it that way all the time, but when I jump in for a VR session and sort of like have a good couple of solid hours doing that VR stuff, it's freaking awesome. Like, I love it, especially the dogfighting. Holy crap. Dogfighting in VR is like every kid's wet space dream that they've wanted to have their entire life. So, yeah.
Nice.
It's amazing. Wet space dream, yeah. All right. Adrian, what was your favorite feature or mechanic in a game this year?
I have to say it's exactly the same as Christian. So,
Yay!
The Sekiro combat mechanic. I mean, I had a bit of a hard time with this part 2 list, and it made me realize I haven't played a great variety of games this year. So, I mean, you may see some common themes in my picks tonight, but Sekiro, there's not much more I can say about the system that Christian hasn't already said, apart from the fact that just the way it makes you feel. Like the reason I had to pick it was because, you know, I approach these sort of picks very pragmatically, and I just think of like, what have I done the most? What is the most of any given category? And when I think of, you know, mechanic, I think, what do I just remember? Because if I can't remember it, it obviously wasn't that important. But one that immediately jumps to mind is that parry combat mechanic in Sekiro. And I mean, it just does a fantastic job of making you feel powerful. And the sort of feedback on the controller and the feedback from the game. The sound, yeah. It's just it's perfectly tuned in every way. Because there are plenty of games that have combat. I mean, a good example is I played The Surge earlier this year. Whilst not a 2019 game, it's in the same genre as Sekiro. And it has like a parry or a block or something in there. But it's just leagues apart from what Sekiro does. It's the difference between sort of wielding a sword and wielding a scalpel. And Sekiro makes you feel like a surgeon. Like anytime you pull something off, you absolutely feel like you deserved to have pulled it off. And I can't think of any situation where you can fluff your way through that game. Whilst in Dark Souls, there are definitely times when you can just scrape through by powering on through. You cannot power through Sekiro. You can't blunt force your way through it. And that's due to this combat mechanic above all else. And it just makes you feel like you deserve to really be that character. So it just does a lot to empower you as a player and really immerse you, which I think is the main draw to it.
Also a really good sort of pick for that setting as well, because that finesse style combat obviously, you know, fits much better with a, you know, samurai style setting than a blunt medieval knight essentially.
Yeah.
So
and that's demonstrated really nicely in the game, because you do fight a medieval knight in Sekiro, and he is invincible to damage. You cannot damage him at all. You have to think of other means, like shinobi style, to actually overcome the challenge. And it involves like deflecting and like parrying and like pushing and positioning. So yeah, that difference is exemplified in the game.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah, there's one that there's also another fight which is worth mentioning, which I remember Christian may have mentioned it previously. There's one fight in the game where it's like a mini boss battle where you only do it by deflecting. You don't throw a single attack.
Yeah.
All you have to do is deflect, and it's the only one in the game. There's only one of them, but it's almost like a little showcase as to like, and it catches you off guard.
It's like a check. It's like have you realized that you need to deflect to defeat enemies in this game? If you have, you can pass. If not, you better fucking learn that lesson.
Yeah.
So it's a harsh tutorial.
Yeah,
it's almost like you're right. It's like a skill checkpoint, because up until that point, maybe you could, you know, throw in some light attacks and get away with it. But this is like, you know, if you haven't learned to masterfully parry, you will now, and if you don't, you can't continue forward.
That's sometimes a really good use of certain sort of themed missions and boss battles in video games in general is showcasing like a particular kind of system really, really strongly to get you to train on it. Yeah, I do like that.
Yeah, it's good. So anyway, that's my answer.
Nice. All right, well, Adrian, you might as well kick us off with our next category as well then. So we're going to lead straight into our favourite moment or sequence from a game this year. So
cool.
Yeah.
So again, mine is from Sekiro. Yay. I don't know, like I'm just going to say now for anyone listening, spoilers.
Sekiro spoilers right now. Skip ahead, maybe 2 minutes, 3 minutes.
Yeah, not story spoilers, but it is a pretty big kind of environmental spoiler. Matt, I don't know if you want to tune out for this bit, maybe, but yeah, cool. It's I'll be quick. There's a section in the game where there's a giant snake, and it like comes out of the side of a mountain, and I literally went, "What the fuck?" Like, I don't think any game has made me exclaim out loud before. So again, going by my criteria, if like it has to be that, like as far as like moments, like if if I've never gone, what the fuck, and actually meant it before, then that's got to be it. So
it's the first thing of its kind of type that happens in the game. Like it's the first crazy supernatural thing on that scale that you see. So
and not a dream sequence or anything either.
No. Very cinematic, in game, live, and it's part of the sort of the next section of area. Through, and it's integrated into the traversal and how you navigate, and it itself is a massive part of the lore. It's just really fantastic.
And by giant snake, he's talking like kaiju size, not like a big boa constrictor. It's like it's like an enormous like Jormungandr.
Like its eye is bigger than your head.
Yeah.
Okay, well, you're good, Matt.
Cool.
So what did you think of that?
Oh, that sounded great.
Yeah.
Good, right?
Yeah, awesome. All right, I'll jump in next. So my favorite moment or sequence this year was an absolute snap pick. Like, it took me 1 second to realize what this was, because I think I realized at the time that it was going to be tough to beat later in the year. And that is the opening scene for Devil May Cry 5 of Devil Trigger. It is fucking awesome. Like, it's basically a music video intro to the game, and it is the absolute perfect representation of this entire game in terms of the gore, the slapstick sort of nature of some of the characters and some of the humor in the game. And it just sets the tone beautifully for the entire thing. The song is fucking awesome. Like, it's really, really good. But like, the thing that really cemented this for me, like, above all else, was the fact that in one of the special versions of the game, there's actually this additional bonus video content where they recreate shot for shot this entire opening cinematic without all of the CG. Like, it's literally people in their studio using props to try and recreate all of the scenes, and it's
their storyboarding, right?
It's so hilarious. Yeah,
it's them storyboarding out the scene before they actually made it.
100%. But like, honestly, it just, seeing that and seeing the absolute hilarity of that just made me love it even more, because oh my god, what studio actually does crazy stuff like that and releases it to the general public? You have to, like, Matt and Adrian, if you guys have not seen this full clip, like music and all, like in both versions, like in the storyboarding version and the actual version, go and watch it on YouTube. You will not be disappointed. It's a ride.
I've seen it.
Yeah. So
I've
good.
100% seen it.
Yeah, love it. Christian, over to you.
So my favorite moment / sequence is there's a number of times in Death Stranding when you crest the hill or you come to some new environmental, landscape or view, and then like a little box appears with a new song that starts playing, and there's like a moment of kind of peace and serenity as you slowly wander down a hill with a really lovely kind of folky song playing, and I found those moments just really chill and very like immersive. So I'm just giving it to the moments in Death Stranding when the music cues time perfectly with the environment and made me feel like the game wanted me to feel, which was cool.
Yeah.
So
I really love those moments as well, but they feel a little bit comical, because every single time it's happened to me in my game thus far, I've crested a hill and then ended out stumbling downhill with this really nice music playing.
That's like, because I was afraid of that happening. So whenever it happened, I was like, I don't want to ruin this moment. So while the song is playing, I was like extra careful, like slowly walking and like being, because I didn't want to ruin the moment.
Yeah, like you 100%. You kind of role play, right? Like, the music's kicked in, time to walk really fucking slowly.
Yeah, totally.
But on more than one occasion, I've ended up stumbling downhill.
It reminds me of a time in year 11 I went on a ski trip, and I came up the top of a hill while skiing, and just as I got to the top of the hill, I put my ski poles under my arms like I was pretending to be like a slalom racer, and I fell straight on my face and tumbled down the hill. And they had to call one of the little like snowmobile stretchers to come and get me.
That's hilarious.
And I dislocated my shoulder, and I wasted the first 2 days of my ski trip.
That's not hilarious.
No, but take Christian's advice and slow down. Enjoy the scenery.
Yeah, I would just love if they put, like in Metal Gear 5, some of the more pop culture kind of songs in there as options for you to put on your personal playlist. Because you could have, like in Metal Gear 5, like when you start sort of arriving at missions in your chopper, you could totally program it to play like Ride of the Valkyries coming in and stuff like that.
Look, we don't need Fear Factory as you crest a beautiful.
If that was an option, I would have put it in there. But I was just thinking in terms of what you could put in Death Stranding is like you come up to the crest of the hill and then all of a sudden you come over the top and then Chumbawamba starts playing and you get knocked down. You get up. Yeah. Anyway.
Wouldn't it be, and I would walk 500.
Yeah, all right.
That'd be good.
Beautiful Proclaimers? Yeah.
Yeah, I'd be so for that.
I'll play that one.
Yeah, so my pick also happens to be an environmental one, and also I'm actually surprised that Luke picked it. So I'm actually kind of happy. But mine was the moment you see the pyramid ship in Destiny 2 Forsaken.
I was tempted.
Yeah, so it's been a couple of months now since.
I like that 3 boxes are like this, and then one of us is.
I was thinking, was Forsaken this year?
Oh, not Forsaken. What is it?
Shadowkeep.
Shadowkeep.
Okay, right.
Shadowkeep, not Forsaken. Shadowkeep.
That is a good moment, I admit.
Yeah. So like you're on this mission, and for like a Destiny fan, like we know what the darkness is. We've seen the pyramid ships and cutscenes and everything like that, and we know that it's an oncoming threat that we're going to have to face in future. And you're playing Shadowkeep, and it's like, okay, it's all about the Hive. It's this weird, it's going to be about the Shadowkeep, right? It's going to be this big red structure. We're going to have to deal with something coming from it. And you're on this mission, which just feels like any other mission where you're just descending down into the Hive areas, walk around this corner, and suddenly there's a gigantic fucking pyramid ship down there. And you just immediately get goosebumps. Like, are they actually fucking doing this?
Yeah.
Like,
I think that
is
the thing is
the darkness expansion.
A lot of people thought that this was going to be like Destiny 3 story content.
Yeah.
So the fact that it was
absolutely.
jumping on us like then and there was a big part of the impact. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that if it was just like, it would have lost that impact if it was just Destiny 3, the darkness is here. Whereas having it just turn up like this, it's like, it's been there all along, and now we're having to deal with it. Like, it's been uncovered, and it kind of has just set the tone, right? Like, yeah, it's inside you,
It's inside you all along.
The true darkness is the enemies we made along the way.
Yeah, I was about to say that.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is a fucking great moment. And then, like, going into that ship and everything that takes place afterwards is really fucking cool. So yeah, that was definitely my moment.
Yeah. The darkness is piloting us like the Vex Milk pilots the Vex. These little milk pilots, we've all got them.
Milk pilots.
We do all have milk pilots.
Well, maybe 50% of the population.
I was making an assumption about the 4 of us.
Perfect. Well, that's our final episode title for the year. All right. Okay, well, let's get on to another super interesting one then. We are coming up to our biggest surprise of the year. So now this could be like a surprise within a game. This could be a surprise of a game. It could be a surprise in the industry. It could be just something video games sort of related or adjacent. It could be any of those things. So what was the thing about video games in 2019 that surprised us the most? So Christian, kick off this one. What was your biggest surprise of 2019?
My biggest surprise of 2019 was a game, and it was actually Ring Fit Adventure. So the fact that a Nintendo game came along with a peripheral, a fitness game, and I got a lot of utility out of it and still play it, although the extreme heat in our city the last week or so has left me not wanting to...
Disgusting. I'm feeling it now.
Not wanting to sweat more than I had to.
Lord, I got the vapors.
But no, it has been really fun to play, and even just learning the different exercises, that's knowledge that I can take and apply outside of the game too. So I know quite a wide range of exercises targeting different areas that I can just apply. If I go to the gym or if I'm just out for a jog and want to stop and do some stretches or something, I've got like a repertoire that I can use now, and that's all thanks to.
Do any of them target your heart?
All the cardio ones, yeah.
Fair, yeah. Have you got your Ring Fit with you in the room? Is it nearby?
I don't actually. No. I should have. But So no, it's just the fact that a fitness peripheral game came along, and I like it a lot, and I still play it. That was a big surprise this year.
Yeah,
I'm actually tempted to pick it up for Christmas.
It's good.
Yeah. I'm not going to exercise over Christmas, I've decided, so it's out for me. Matt, what are you going to be surprised by this year, though? What else is coming up?
So it wasn't that long ago that we recorded our episode 0. Very, very stated that like I was not good with hard games and I really didn't like them and everything like that. And then I got really, really fucking surprised that I don't suck at Souls-like games. And now I kind of want to go back and re-record that episode. Sorry.
We always believed. Christian and I always believed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Adrian.
Yes.
You're the reason why I could finish it.
Convincing people to play Souls games is like a Souls boss, where you have to keep trying over and over again. But when they eventually like them, it's really rewarding.
Yeah.
It is a cult.
Yeah.
It is a cult. I'm glad to be part of a cult finally.
You are now at Sapphire level. And now you need to tell 4 friends to play a Souls-like.
This Souls-like's a pyramid scheme?
Yeah, this is how you get on the real pyramid ship, Matt. Yeah,
that's right. Yeah, forget your Destiny pyramids. This is the real pyramid.
But it's like, this is kind of like a two-pronged thing, right? Like, one, I was surprised that I actually really fucking like Souls-like games. It's just that I hadn't found the right one for me yet. And 2, I was surprised that Jedi Fallen Order is so fucking good.
Yeah.
Like, I was so ready for that game to be garbage. Like, everything that I had seen, like, oh, we get to fight gigantic animals. Cool. I really want to do that as a Jedi. And then you go and fight the gigantic animals, and you're like, holy fuck, don't kill me. And it's actually great fun. It's actually massive challenge. And it puts a really interesting spin. Like, I think the Souls-like kind of formula, playing as a Jedi, is just a really perfect mix that we haven't really had before. Like most Jedi games were kind of power fantasies, whereas this kind of falls into a point where, you know, the Jedi are at their lowest point, and you're kind of struggling to get up from that. And it's kind of the perfect place to situate that game. But yeah, no, the fact that I actually it took a lot of time and effort to actually learn to get good at it. And now here I am playing on the highest difficulty, and probably will end out streaming the full game over the break, honestly. Like, start and finish the game on stream. Because, I just fucking like it. It's great fun. Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
It is better than it had any right to be, given what we knew about it before it arrived.
Oh, God, yes. Mm-hmm. And how many fucking games got cancelled to see that game come to life?
Yep.
So.
Yep. Agreed. All right, well, I'll jump in. My biggest surprise of the year was not a specific game, although it was pretty strongly tied to a specific game. But it was actually at the very, very beginning of the year. And it was something that kind of kicked off what turned out to be a massive part of the year for me. Because if this hadn't have happened, I don't know if what sort of came afterwards would have played out exactly the same way. And it ended up being quite impactful, as it turned out. But my biggest surprise of the year was actually the Bungie split from Activision. That caught me massively by surprise, and I think that is probably one of the first sort of big instances of that nature that we've seen in the industry almost ever. I don't want to categorically say that it's never happened before, but I think at this size and of something this big a name, like Bungie actually having split off from Activision after being so firmly sort of tied to that structure and entrenched there. And it's kind of linked in a way, like it is a surprise that's also linked with a lot of the hubris of recent years that's been going on with Activision Blizzard. And I think that it happening in the midst of all that was even more surprising. The fact that they were able to sort of kind of disconnect and move away from all this chaos that was going on the other side of the business was just... It was a shock, but it was a really, really pleasant one, because then it went on to give us things like, how Shadowkeep's played out, and, the way that the new seasonal structure is working, and, free-to-play Destiny New Light, and, I'm sure there's at least 3 people that are thrilled that it's on Stadia, and, all this other stuff. So, but the thing that I think has come as a result of it that is the most exciting is the fact that they've doubled down and committed to another 5 years of content for this game without actually doing a sequel. And for me, who's invested so much time in it, that split to me is such a pleasant surprise in that I know now that all this time that I've invested is going to pay dividends far beyond what I initially expected. And that's really made me satisfied with the time that I've put into the game this year, because I'm now confident that studio has the creative I guess scope to do what they want to do, as opposed to needing to be held to a larger plan that is more business centric and at the direction of shareholders and things like that. So super pleasant surprise for me this year. Couldn't have seen that coming from a mile away. So yeah.
If we had a biggest moment of joy this year, my award would have gone to that, because like Bungie in a big way was one of the studios that got me into game development. So to see them, they separated from Microsoft, which was like this moment of like, oh, good on them. They finally earned their independence. And the moment they teamed up with Activision, it's like, oh no, how's this going to end? And we know how it ends. It didn't end well. But then them separating out was just such a good thing.
Yeah. It was probably the right move for them at the time, but it ran its course and they were able to end it when it ran its course. So yeah.
They got the Activision money they needed to get as far as they did, and now it's paying off.
Yeah. What I'm curious about is whether it sets an interesting precedent in future for other studios that might attempt to do the same. So yeah, we'll wait and see.
Blizzard's not getting away.
No, well, that's a real shame.
Blizzard getting away from Activision is like trying to separate soy sauce, white rice. Like, you've already poured it on there. It's not happening. That white rice is always going to be a bit soy saucy.
Yeah.
Adrian's disgusted kind of.
Soy sauce on rice. Fucking
Yeah, that's fair. All right, well, in terms of other things that are both tasteful yet a bit odd, Adrian, what was your pick?
I struggled to think of a surprise, but having listened to the preview, I think I know what it is. I'm surprised that this disgusting sickness that I have, that was clearly obtained from watching the VGA Awards, has not turned me into a festering pile of dog shit to accurately reflect how I feel about having watched 60% of that show. I think if I could go back in time and threaten myself with chemical castration, that would be a better option than sitting through one more second of that bubbling bile pit of an experience.
This isn't even your biggest disappointment.
No. I'm surprised that I can carry on living.
I love
that's the best
how like before Adrian said that, my opinion on the Game Awards seemed very scathing and negative. But now by comparison, I'm like a cheer squad for the Game Awards.
I just realized that I wasn't here when you guys were talking about it, and it's everything I hate. Like,
but were you surprised? Were you expecting it to play out any differently?
No, look. Remember when it was E3? We did the E3 coverage, and I was like, "What the fuck is this? This is shit." The Game Awards is that dialed up like all the way.
Yeah.
To just a bunch of people like going, "Oh yeah."
What even is that?
Thank you,
I
me.
think he was. I'm not sure if he was like jacking himself off on his back or just patting, but
It's a bit of both. Like it's just like. Why, like, I can't articulate it properly. It's just a bunch of people just circle jerking each other and then patting each other on the back and then licking each other's eyeballs because they get off on it. And it's just, it's like, it's a reflection of like modern day hedonism. It's like a cesspool. Like if the Chaos God Slanesh was personified in any part of our culture, it's a video game awards, and it's a monument to our failings as a species. It's a testament to man's hubris. The video game awards.
So how about that Fallout 76, eh?
It's up there with Fallout 76. Totally vapid and vain and void of any sincerity, and that's not a joke. I really mean that. I feel like
I 100% the lacking sincerity part, I can see that.
yeah.
Like I watched the awards and I was like, none of this feels real. Like none of it feels sincere. It just feels completely artificial and manufactured, and like what's the room when people get into a room and like work out how to best optimize something? What's it
like
called?
focus tested?
Focus tested. It just feels like super focus tested, and I was just like, why are we watching this? Like, what is the benefit to me as a consumer of video game media other than to watch a bunch of people congratulate themselves? Like, I hate that.
All right, dare I ask, as we lead into our next category, the greatest disappointment of the year?
Yeah, it's not as bad.
Adrian, would you like to kick us off on this one?
This is a far more measured response. My biggest disappointment of the year is Pokemon Sword and Shield. It's hard to say it's a disappointment. I've played it, and there's obviously more than any other game I've played this year, in a far shorter amount of time than any other game I've played this year. But from as a Pokemon fan, and I'm sure this sentiment is echoed online everywhere, and people will be contrarian to the point, but it was just a massive disappointment all around. Like, disappointing Pokemon, disappointing number of Pokemon, disappointing number of old Pokemon brought forward, disappointing gameplay, disappointing features, disappointing world. Like, there's nothing in that game when you play it like makes you excited like for more. It's a step backwards as far as Pokemon is concerned, and I think that's pretty universally agreed upon. So I'm pretty massively disappointed in Pokemon Sword and Shield.
I was just reading today that Smogon, which is like the largest Pokemon battling rule set, which like all tournaments are run by other than the official Pokemon tournaments, they've banned Dynamaxing because it's just so like it just screws with the battle system so much, and they just had to just flat out ban Dynamaxing, even though they did allow like Mega Evolutions and the Y moves in the past. But yeah, Dynamaxing is crap.
Yeah, the whole thing is just a shame, and like I mean, I said it before when the game was first released. We talked about it a bit. It just feels like I don't know. Maybe it was intentional to sort of create a new generation of onboarding or something, but it just feels like the game is like baby's first Pokemon. Which, considering this was their jump to a console, you would think it would be the opposite. Like you would think that they would be doing greater and better things, but I don't know. I don't know how games are made in that way. So
on the plus side, though, as opposed to any other sort of franchise that's much loved that you have a strong connection to that has like a miss, at least in this case, you're only going to be waiting potentially 1 or 2 more years for the next installment, as opposed to 4 or 5.
That's true, and that's kind of what keeps you holding on. Is that I would like to believe that in tradition they made you a third version of the game, like so they've done Sword, Shield, Gun. Pokemon Gun will hopefully, I don't know, do something like maybe
Pokemon Nux.
Yeah, Pokemon. I don't know, Pokemon Armored Transport Vehicle, whatever the third one's called. Hopefully that will do some fixings, but because it's part of the same DNA, I doubt that'll be the case. I imagine they'll need to get to a whole new game before hardcore fans get what they really want out of it.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, Matt, what was your biggest disappointment in 2019?
Weirdly enough, I think this is actually the same last year, which is basically my biggest disappointment of the year is just the entirety of AAA games. Like, and not even in the same way as last year. Like, we've had studio closures and everything again, but I'm more disappointed in just like the quality of AAA games we've gotten this year. And by extension, also disappointed in the Game Awards and the representation of games in general, right? Like, because the Game Awards is so AAA centric that the best games this year weren't even represented in the Game of the Year category, in my opinion. Like, when you have games like Outer Wilds, and you have games like Disco Elysium. Like, Disco Elysium won 4 awards, but it wasn't even up for Game of the Year.
To be fair, though, that's not the fault of the Game Awards. That's the fault of the panel of 80-plus media outlets that played that part in the selections.
But a single indie game not making it into that category, and that's always been the case. Is that actually the case?
Yeah, that is categorically how that happens. So, yes. Yeah.
Yeah. it's still fucking dumb.
Yeah, just because that's the mechanism by which the problem happens, but the problem is still a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, and so this is less an issue with the Game Awards, but more just the quality of like the reason picking Game of the Year this year was so hard was because none of them were really Game of the Year material. And I say that as somebody that played Control and really loved it. And I can only speak for the games I've played, of course, right? Like I played Control and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't Game of the Year material. Like it had a lot of problems that needed to be overcome to be fixed. And before it was Game of the Year material. Outer Worlds, I played it and I enjoyed it, but it wasn't Game of the Year material. And like Death Stranding, played it, enjoyed it, on there for Game of the Year material, in my opinion. But just all these games up there, I can't speak for a whole bunch of other ones. Like I can't speak for Resident Evil 2 and everything like that. The games that I haven't played. But in my opinion, just like games, AAA games overall this year were really, really lacking. And I want to believe that it's because we're in this weird in-between year where now we're getting to the point we're starting to hear console announcements for next generation and everything like that. And maybe all AAA is kind of holding back their best stuff for when that stuff hits.
I 100% think that that's the case. Yeah.
But just overall, like either AAA had a really, really shit year this year, or indies had a massive, incredibly good year. Because just in comparison, like I do feel that as much as Disco Elysium had a really good amount of representation at the Game Awards, and half of that wasn't even actually on stage, indie games in general just haven't had the representation they should have had, because quite frankly, I think indie games shat over AAA games this year. So, yeah.
I guess that's the nature of the industry, though. Like when we have a low year due to the console and generation cycle, that is a really good opener for some of those excellent indies to sort of rise above and get the stage for a time. But
I wouldn't say like they rose up because there was a lack of AAA games. Like they would have rose up in spite of it, right? And a lot of these games still haven't gotten the screen time or attention they deserve. Like Outer Wilds is a really good example. Disco Elysium got a good amount of it from the Game Awards, but I guarantee like it still won't be one of the most played games this year.
Yeah.
And I feel like the way that the Game Awards is structured and the way that it played out this year, it kind of holds AAA to a different standard than indie. Even the way that indies were spoken about was like, oh, indies, you enter the industry as an indie and then you go to AAA. And it's like, well, no, that's not how it works. You enter the industry as a AAA and then you're like, fuck this sucks. And you go to indie. Or you reject going that far. You don't want to work in a big corporate situation. You want to have your own studio and make, small, sensible games. And I think that kind of, this idea that AAA is the end result of where indies go, and that kind of discussion was not really a healthy one for the industry either.
Yeah. It is not their final form. Yeah.
It's not their final form. Absolutely. Like Disco Elysium doesn't need to. That should be a AAA. Like they should keep on making niche little games, because if they were a AAA studio, had a whole bunch of investors that were telling them how to make games, Disco Elysium wouldn't have been made. So
yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
All right, I'll jump in next, and I'll speed things up a little bit as we're sort of running along. But my biggest disappointment of the year was nearly the Blitzchung thing with Blizzard. But I thought strongly about it, and I thought, no, I probably need to give this to Anthem. So biggest disappointment of the year was Anthem. I actually, at the beginning of the year, had a suspicion that things were not going to play out particularly well. But I was not prepared for how much of a absolute shitstorm that game ended up being. It was bad. Like from the initial sort of release roadmap that they put out, that was like convoluted as all get out, to the sort of beta, the open beta that they had, which made it very, very clear there was going to be some severe issues with this game unless they mobilized very quickly to fix some of them, like around the load times and the emptiness of some of the areas, and the weird sort of first person versus third person sort of switch to different areas in the game, like in that sort of, and the non-existent social space and all that kind of stuff. It was just odd. And then when the actual game launched, it was pretty clear that no, that was a foreshadowing of things to come. And the lack of polish around significant areas of the game, and And, the core gameplay loop being as shallow as it was. I mean, the one thing they got right with Anthem was the Iron Man style flying. I thought that was awesome. They did really well with that. Unfortunately, everything else they built around that game just wasn't up to scratch. And that one mechanic was not enough to see the rest of the game through. But the thing that sort of disappointed me the most is that this is kind of like the first real big bit of evidence in a post-Mass Effect Andromeda world that the BioWare that we once knew and loved is no more. Like, it's pretty much, it was the nail in the coffin this year to sort of say, no, the studio that you loved is now gone. That they are not making those sorts of games anymore. The people that formed that part of the team left. The creative energy and the way that team operated within the larger whole of the corporate structure, it was now sort of limited by things that maybe they weren't limited by before. The issues they were having with Frostbite as well were becoming painfully evident. All that kind of stuff was just massively, massively disappointing. And I don't hold out a lot of hope, unfortunately, for the next Dragon Age game if this sort of stuff is going to continue within BioWare in games that they're currently and in the future developing. So I think that there's going to be a lot of people that look on their next project with some large degree of skepticism, and rightly so. So, yeah.
It's funny, I just watched the Netflix documentary about the Fire Festival.
Oh, yeah, I've seen that.
It reminds me of that. Like, it's totally similar situation where, like, people got into the game and was like, what the fuck? Is that my tent? Like, what's going on? Like, where's the festival? Yeah.
If you haven't watched that documentary, everyone who listens should watch it. It's spelled FYRE, Fire. It's fantastic.
Yeah, it's really good.
It's funny because, like, Anthem wasn't even on my radar because I had set myself up for disappointment with it. Like, I was already expecting to be disappointed by whatever came out. Not because I disliked Mass Effect Andromeda. I actually quite liked it.
I didn't mind
it. But because, I thought Mass Effect Andromeda was fine. It had animation issues, but I think it got a bad rap. But the way that Anthem kind of played out, even before its release, and the way it was kind of communicated, felt rushed, and they weren't really sure what it was other than a third-person Destiny-like.
Yeah, it wasn't just the game, is what I'm getting at. It was a lot more than
absolutely. That. There was a lot more going on. But even just like the flying mechanic might have been the best part of it, but we don't have a good Iron Man game for a reason, right? And it's one of those things where it's like the moment I saw that, I'm like, this is not going to end well. Like, they're not going to be able to make that work. And just kind of how it panned out. So,
yeah.
All
right, Christian, over to you.
Biggest disappointment was Indivisible because it was a game I was looking forward to a lot and it was bad.
Cool. So give us a recap on what Indivisible was again.
It was the Kickstarter game by Lab Zero Games, who made Skullgirls. Head of the studio is a fellow named Mike Z, who's a cool guy. And I love the art and the aesthetic and the overall style of Skullgirls. And I was hoping that that would be translated into an in-depth, satisfying RPG with fun characters and a story, as well as the sort of fighting game style combat that was going to be adapted into it. And it turned out to be very shallow and undercooked, and just a general disappointment. It did retain the fantastic art style, but that just wasn't enough to carry it. And it was a bad game.
Yeah. That's a shame. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember you talking about that.
Yeah, on the surface it looked like everything that you would love in one of those things, but nope, apparently not. All right, well, anyway, that all aside, all the disappointment aside, let's sweep that, cast it aside, and let's talk about some actual legitimate good games. So we're now going to race through our top 3 of the year per each of us. And I'm going to kick things off tonight. I'm going to rip through mine because I'm just going to very, very quickly start with honorable mentions. I know I'm cheating, but fuck you guys, these are good games. Anyway, the games that I'm not going to put in my top 3 tonight, which I did want to mention because they're super good games and I enjoyed the hell out of them, were Bloodstained: Ritual of the Night. Kick-ass game. Awesome. Loved it. As a platformer, kicked amazing ass. Control is not in my top 3. It only just missed out. Control, also a sensational game. Devil May Cry 5, also, my God, I love that game. There's a lot of stuff about that as an action brawler with the music and the characters and everything, just my cup of tea. And the other one that just narrowly missed out was Judgment. So Judgment, as far as a Yakuza-like game that really hit the right buttons with me, awesome as well, only just narrowly missed out because the other 3, I think, probably deserved a bit more of my attention this year. So in third spot, my number 3 pick for my favourite of the year is actually, remember this game? Tom Clancy's The Division 2.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Now,
What?
Put 200 plus hours into that.
I did, yeah,
Never heard of
absolutely. So I have to mention this, and it was this year, despite how long ago it feels, because I put a ton of time into this game this year and enjoyed it greatly. And as a game on release, in terms of the playability of the game, the systems, the combat, even the story elements and the characters and everything, loved it. Awesome. I thought that no, Adrian, not quite like that. But the thing that stood out to me, and I think that why the Division 2 was worthy of a spot on my top 3 this year, because it really kicked amazing ass when it first launched, is that the end game content in Division 2 was massively substantial and very, very fun to go through. So the different world tiers and the stuff with the Black Tusk and some of the higher end game content, I just think they hit it out of the park as far as having that available on initial release. Unfortunately, the game kind of lost a bit of its drive when they got into some of the content releases further into the year and added the raid content and that sort of stuff, because it hit a very high sort of skill gate to get into that sort of stuff, and I found it a bit difficult without a team of people locally to do it with. But I still have to appreciate that I love the game, spent a lot of time in it, and certainly enjoyed all of it. So number 2 for me, despite the fact I haven't finished it yet, and I really need to do it over the Christmas break because I love the hell out of this game, and I really haven't spoken much about it on the show at all yet compared to a couple of you, is actually Jedi Fallen Order. So Jedi Fallen Order is legitimately a really freaking good game that had no right to be as good as it does, and it's lacking a bit of polish, but it's fucking Star Wars, y'all. It is Star Wars, and it is a Star Wars game as you need. It is real good. I'm not going to talk any more about it because I think we've discussed it plenty recently. But if you've been listening to us talk about Jedi Fallen Order in the last few episodes, you know why this is number 2 on my list. But number 1, and probably not coming as a huge surprise, because I was very, very strong about this early on in the year. I thought this would be my game of the year. I thought this would be my game of the year if it wasn't for one other game that got delayed, and that is Resident Evil 2 Remake. Is my pick for number 1 this year. Yeah.
Very good game.
It hit all the buttons for me with regards to the nostalgia of playing the original Resident Evil 2, which was one of my favorites back then as well. The graphical upgrade they gave it, the gameplay changes they made with keeping it still true to the original, just the real sort of the nailing of the horror elements and the timing and the suspense and, Mr. X and all that kind of stuff. Loved it.
You can't pick it because it's a remake.
No. Fuck you, Adrian.
That statement is only to piss off Christian.
No, it was amazing. So, that was my favorite game of the year that wasn't delayed to 20th of March, 2020. Anyway. Because that one probably would have been it otherwise. But anyway, that's a story for next year because it's up against a much bigger competition. So, All right, who wants to go next?
Adrian.
Go, Adrian.
Adrian, with his hand first.
This may surprise you guys, but my number 3 is actually Sekiro.
Oh, wow.
No, it's bait and switch.
My number 2 is Sekiro the second time I played it.
Yeah.
And my number 1 is Sekiro the third time I played it.
All right.
That's my top 3 games.
It was the same
shit.
game. It was the same game. What if 2 of those are remakes?
It's good. The reason I did that is because I honestly haven't played that many games this year. When I look back at my year, I put a lot of hours into Destiny 2. But I've said before, I have a complicated relationship with Destiny 2 where I don't like it that much.
Not a new game either, so technically you wouldn't name it.
Exactly. So really those 3, I have to do the honorable mention thing because I don't think it fits the criteria. But Street Fighter V has to be mentioned for me because Sekiro and Street Fighter V are the 2 standout games for me this year that have really had an impact on me on some level beyond just mindless enjoyment. Like 2 things that have given me amazing experiences. Maybe Street Fighter V could squeeze in there because it's had updates this year and new characters and that kind of thing. So if it helps, Honda is like my main, and he is one of the ones that came out this year. Yeah. So maybe that is one way I can squeeze it in. But playing it with Christian, getting involved with the community, getting better, really great. So those are my 4, but really 2 picks. So no matter how you swing it, I still didn't give you 3 overall. So.
And you're not also going to squeeze Honda into anything, let's face it. So, yeah. All right.
Maybe the 3rd could be shiny hunting.
So that's Pokemon.
Yeah. All right. Christian, you want to go next?
Sure. Yep. So my number 3 game is The Death Stranding by Hideo Kojima, directed by Hideo Kojima, and written by Hideo Kojima.
Yeah.
It's a Hideo Kojima game.
Acted by Hideo Kojima. Every single character.
He does have 2 cameos in it.
Christian, who made Death Stranding?
It's a team of hundreds of very qualified and talented people.
Oh, right.
All of them Hideo Kojima.
So Thursday Death Stranding, I've talked at length about why I enjoyed it. It's just a really good game. And yeah, number two is Resident Evil 2. So for very similar reasons to Luke, it is a fantastic game. I think of it may even be I think of it as like one of those games that's nearly perfect. Like it's such a complete package, and everything it does so well. It looks amazing, it plays amazing. It's just the systems are designed so well. It's like this well-oiled machine, and it's just I think that in some ways it could actually be a better game than my number 1 pick in some ways, but it's my number 2 pick personally.
I would struggle to find something I would change about it. You're right.
Yeah, I just think that it's almost like Super Metroid in that way, where I think Super Metroid is a perfect game, and I think the Resident Evil 2 might be a perfect game. But my number 1 pick is predictably Sekiro, and that's because it is one of the best games I've ever played. And I love it so much. I love the combat, I love the world, I love the atmosphere, and I played it 5 times or whatever to get every ending like Adrian did. And yeah, it was just a fantastic game, and I am really excited for DLC or a sequel or something like that. So I just want more Sekiro in my life.
Yeah,
you know it's going to be. You know that it's your favorite game because unlike any other game I can think of, if DLC comes out, you'll definitely play it.
Absolutely, that's a good point. Yeah,
That's how
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I would jump straight in and play Sekiro DLC, and that can't be said for very many games at all.
Yeah. I think given the amount of time that you guys put into that game this year, while it's a predictable best of the year, it's also a very deserving one for as many reasons as you've listed. Like, and I can appreciate having bounced off a little bit because of my personal taste that it's a freaking awesome game. So
yeah,
I think the fact that Christian and I played it together in the nude really probably elevates it as to why we both have it as our number 1. That's got to be a contributing factor.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't need that mental image.
That's the shadows. That's why they died twice.
There was lots of parrying going on.
It's not really. We were in the nude. I was kind of wearing you on top of me.
Yeah. So, I mean, if someone was watching from the outside, one of us would have been obscured at any given time.
Yeah, my head kind of out the side.
Matt,
we would controller.
Matt, save us.
Yeah, I mean,
Matt.
if you mush them together like enough times.
Save us.
Can I go back and change my most?
Not most. It was the most disgusted, Matt.
Yeah, I don't want you to because then you'll have to talk about what just happened again. So let's just move on.
Why do you think I'm so sick? This is the fallout from. Oh no, that's why. You're just jealous.
So I'm not going to do honorable mentions because I follow the. My number 3 game of the year is Disco Elysium. It is one of the most unique and well-written and beautiful RPGs that I have ever played. And the fact that I can call it an RPG when it's more like a Telltale narrative game is fucking great. Like, it is so good. And I wish I could place it higher on the list. I really struggle with these. As I've played games this year, I've kind of been keeping a score as to how I felt about it. And every single game on my top 3 got the same score. Like, I could easily say they're all on the same level. It's just I had to kind of put them in an order that I liked them the most. So, yeah, Disco Elysium at number 3. Number 2 is the game that made me a Souls-like player.
Yay.
Is Jedi Fallen Order. Because fucking hell, this game made my life so with choosing my game of the year because it was. But yeah, it is so amazingly. The narrative is fucking fantastic. The gameplay is brilliant. I love the fact that it was accessible enough to me to actually be able to join in and enjoy like what everybody else I know that likes Souls-like games enjoys, and to be able to understand a bit more of that and to engage with it, and to have gone and put Sekiro on several of my Christmas wish lists. So
I really love that. Like,
Yeah.
I'm so curious. I want to play it because I want to know like how Souls-like is this actually? Like I want to maybe before Matt gets around to Sekiro, I want to have it see and think like is this actually going to lead him into Souls games, or is that maybe
it's a baby step. It's a foot through the door. I think that its gameplay. I've played Dark Souls, and I can say it's similar enough to Dark Souls. But I think that part of the reason why I ended up sticking with it is because Dark Souls is such a depressing world that I didn't want to be there. Whereas Jedi Fallen Order has kind of got this hopeful narrative. Star Wars, which I enjoy, and it had difficulty levels that I could basically start playing it and say I am going to play it on this difficulty, but if I can't do that, at least I can set it down. Whereas Dark Souls was basically just like a massive fuck you, get out, you know. And so in this case, I feel like I can actually stick with Order, and it's taught me to actually play those games. Like I have talked at length already about my first 2 hours, 3 hours of that game and learning to actually time things and getting better at it. So, yeah.
I think Sekiro is a bit more forgiving than Souls games for one main reason, and it's that because you only have one weapon and there's only one way to do things, it's like anytime you enter like a fight, you have like a narrow corridor of success. So you have like a very accurate idea of what you need to do. Whilst in a Souls game, because there's a range of weapons, you basically run up to a boss and just swing whatever weapon you're holding.
Yeah.
And the majority of the fighting is avoiding, not confronting.
Definitely.
So it's so you never really feel as in control as you do in Sekiro. And I think that goes a long way to negate a lot of the frustrations that you might feel from Souls games.
I think that's a really good point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
In like the other Souls games, sometimes you're thinking like, oh, is my weapon too weak? Do I need to level up more of my stats? Like, is this boss weak to a certain type of like slashing or bludgeoning or whatever or magic? Whereas in Sekiro, you're right, it is just like a focus thing. You don't have to worry about really your upgrades very much.
Doesn't that change a little bit with some of your other sort of throwables and things though?
You get the prosthetics, but not so much. They're good utilities, and that there is a system there where certain bosses are weak to certain prosthetics, but it's not a be all and end all. Like it's going to help you, and you're going to get rewarded for doing the right thing, but you don't need to do that.
And you can't rely on them because the prosthetics use a resource, and you fight bosses so many times that you run out of that resource. And so you can't rely on integrating them into your strategy.
Yeah,
because you don't carry over that resource between deaths, so you'll run out of the prosthetic resources within the first couple of fights, and then unless you go back and farm, which takes forever, it's easier just to learn it to do it like what's the right word? Old natural is probably the best way to do it.
Yeah. But yeah, like that has a lot more in common with Jedi. Like you have a lightsaber. That's it. That's your weapon. And that has a lot more in common with Sekiro, obviously. But yeah, so that's my number 2.
What's the guy's name again, Matt?
What? Ogdo Bogdo.
Ogdo Bogdo. Yeah. That fucking. So the fun fact with that, I don't think I actually mentioned with that boss that it's a mini boss. When I fought him before I got access to Stimpaks, which you get in the same level. So the actual way you're actually meant to go face him is you're meant to go get Stimpaks and then go back. Where I was just going straight to him like a fucking dumbass. But within 3 hours, I still beat him. So fuck you, Ogdo Bogdo.
More like Ogdo Bogno.
My number 1 game of the year. I have talked about it so fucking much. It's going to be a surprise to absolutely no one. Is Outer Wilds. Like, there was no competition. Well, actually, no, there was absolutely a competition. But just such a unique game. Like, exploration was so cool. Like, I think the thing about indie games this year, and the note that I kind of want to end on, is basically that we've had so many really cool, unique experiences I think we've not really seen from indies before that have actually taken off in like the public mind. Like Goose Game is, Metal Goose Solid. That kind of stealth mechanic.
Hit Goose.
Outer Wilds. Hit Goose, yeah. Outer Wilds, we have this really, really awesome exploration mechanic. Disco Elysium, we have a Baldur's Gate-esque RPG without combat.
Honkman.
What's the man part?
Well,
Hitman.
Hitman.
But Honk Man.
Sorry.
I just immediately went to Mega Man.
Yeah.
But yeah, it is one of the most unique experiences I've played in years. It's gone to my top 10 games. But quite honestly, there was so much competition there because Jedi Fallen Order is now on my top 10 games ever. So yeah, like it is just absolutely brilliant, and I cannot recommend it enough. It is it's my game of the year that nobody's played, basically, and everybody should play it. Give it a shot, and see how you like it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nice.
Can I play it nude with Christian?
Yes, go ahead. Just don't tell me about it.
Ever.
Oh, you'll be there. We won't need to tell you.
Can I please not be nude?
Sorry,
What? You want to be there even with that?
Look,
Yeah,
Luke,
start.
This is not an and or, Matt. You don't need to do any of these things.
I don't know.
Oh,
We're not uncultured swine. We have some standards.
anyway.
Maybe the reason I don't
Granted,
like
they're
it, Luke,
very
is
low.
because I was left out.
Okay. Sure. All right. Well, anyway.
Anyways.
We don't play Souls like, we play Holes like.
Oh, God. No. All right. Anyway.
We use all sorts of prosthetics.
We're done. That's it. The show's over. Party Loaded, cancelled for 2019. No. Anyway, this is our final show of the year, so that's wrapping up our party favourites for 2019. So for everybody who's listened to the show this year, thank you very much for being part of our audience. Hopefully you've enjoyed it, and look forward to coming back next year with a whole new slate of content and different topics to attack and different ideas for guests and that sort of stuff. So kicking off into the new year, I don't think we've set an exact date yet, but I think early January would be the safe bet. So when we return, we'll have all of the details up on the socials. Of course, we'll be back streaming live every week as well, so make sure you catch the show live if you can, because it is an extra layer of fun, especially when you get to visualize some of the things that we would otherwise only have worming our way into your ears. But yeah, that's it. So just final thing before we leave, like probably related to some of the party favorite stuff that we've talked about, what is your one sort of target to do over the Christmas break before we catch back up and record again in terms of games that you want to pick up and get to? So I'll say categorically my one is going to be Outer Wilds. I want to play Outer Wilds before we get back. So yeah.
Ooh, that's tough.
You've got a few on your list, Christian. I'm
gonna say Yakuza 0 and Life is Strange 2.
Okay, cool. That's not too... Well, Yakuza 0 will take you a little while, but Life is Strange not too long. So, Adrian, what about you? What are you going to try and do?
Fallen Order. It's been on my radar for weeks. Since when you guys started talking about it, I knew I wanted to play it. So, Fallen Order. Also, that second Shiny. And I'm breeding a perfect 6 IV team of Pokemon. So, those are sort of downtime... I've relegated that to kind of downtime gaming, but I would like to play Fallen Order.
Yeah. Nice. Matt?
If I get Sekiro, I will actually play that over the break, because I want to talk about that going into the new year.
Mm-hmm.
I actually have also put down, I want to play Baldur's Gate, so I want to get the Switch version, so I might play that over the break as well. But otherwise, I'm probably going to end up playing Jedi Order again.
Nice. It's not a bad thing. No. All right, well, that's a show. So anyway, if you want to get in touch with us and discuss some of your picks for favourite games of the year and all the categories that we've talked about tonight, make sure you do so in the usual fashion. So mail at partyloaded.com, at partyloaded show on Twitter. You can catch us on Facebook just under partyloaded. And, of course, everything else under the sun when it comes to our show and all associated links to Twitch and YouTube and all that sort of stuff, you can find at our hub at channelendgame.com. But that's it from me, from Christian, from Matt, Adrian. We'll be back next year. Look forward to chatting about a whole bunch of new games and new bits and pieces of fun. 2020 is sizing up to be a pretty massive year, so we've got a lot of things to look forward to in the first few months. I mean, the first quarter next year in particular, holy crap, we're going to have some things to chat about. But that's it. Thank you, everybody. We'll see you again next year. Merry Christmas.
Have a good Christmas.
Happy Kwanzaa.
Hopefully no one dies.
Bye.
But for us tonight, that's it. Good night.
Good night.
The Party Loaded podcast is a Channel Endgame production. For this and more great gaming content, bookmark channelendgame.com.